Everybody ready for Clemson and Florida State? I know I am. Let's go, because this is going to be a great game.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Seminoles podcast, going live today before Clemson plays Florida State. And I tell you what, this is the kind of game that gets you excited. This is why you follow college football year round, the pageantry, all the opportunities with recruiting, with building your roster, the transfer portal, coaching changes, and of course, just the rivalries themselves. Clemson, Florida State, one of the game's best college football rivalries. And it's a game I've been watching since I was a little kid. I remember watching the great game with the Punt Ruski in the late 80s. I remember watching games afterwards, Florida State and Clemson, when the shift took and Florida State completely started to dominate the series. A lot of those games were fun for me. Some of them were rain-soaked. Some of them were close. Some were blowouts, but it's been a part of it. So today, I've got a running list of things here as we're about 58 minutes from kickoff. And, before those commercials right at noon when they say they're going to kick off. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with Florida State in terms of the opportunities today, what's at stake for them, and then just kind of go over game measurements. Who's hurt? We got some injury updates. Game Day talked about that a little bit on ESPN. So thanks to them, I can give a little bit. And I got some opinions on it. Some good and one that's really bad, unfortunately, for Florida State. But that's part of it. Injuries are a part of this game. They have been, they will be. It's the way the world works. I mean, football is a brutal sport. I've got Game Day on an iPad over here, just kind of keeping an eye on making sure there's no other news. But this is what I've heard. I'm going to start with the injury stuff because I think it's the most important thing. It's number one on the board. Maurice Smith, the center, is expected to play. Now, most people think, well, it's good to get an offensive lineman back, but it's not just an offensive lineman. It's a guy that's got a lot of experience, and he's the dude snapping the ball, making line calls up front for not only Jordan Travis, but the entire offense. This is a guy that's making play calls that are going to change what direction the ball goes. If they're set up to run it to the right or power middle, whatever, if they see something, he can make a check. He can help make a check. He can adjust somebody. Those are hidden things that aren't in quote unquote stats, but change the outcome of football games. That's important. Also, this is a huge, huge deal. And just opening up the comments here. Antonio Williams. Wow. According to Mr. John Fletcher, Antonio Williams for Clemson is not going to play. I've heard different things. I got some thoughts about it. I got his name circled. There have been different rumors about that, and I'll get to that too because that's huge. He was their guy last year as a freshman that they really went to, and I'll just throw out his stats real quick. 15 receptions, 145 yards, only 9.7 yards a catch, but they throw a lot of screens to Antonio and a couple of scores. He is the extension of Cade Klubnik in helping run the ball because I'll just be blunt. Cade is a true sophomore. They're not going to admit this, and they probably won't even admit to him directly. They are trying to protect him from throwing picks by throwing short and letting the guys just run around. That's their offense right now. It's not very dynamic. But Antonio is one of those guys that can make three guys miss and score. Very talented. If he does not play today and Florida State doesn't win by double digits, I will be surprised. That limits their offense something horrifically. There's a stat from Pro Football Focus, just to put it in perspective on how much Clemson throws the ball short. This is just mind-boggling considering how Florida State and Clemson have had the better recruiting classes in this conference for a while. You would expect both to throw the ball down the field a lot, and Florida State does, but Clemson does not. 9 yards or less is over 50% of their passes. Well over. That's not very Clemson-like because they've been a deep ball team for a long time. Screen, little short hitch, pump fake, double move, and go. I mean, they throw a lot of deep balls in the last 10 years. They are not right now at all. And if that continues, Clemson's going to struggle this year. They'll be 8-4 to 10-2, but not the greatest 10-2. They'll have to fight to get to that. They still got to get through the rest of the ACC and Notre Dame later this year. It's going to be tough especially if Antonio is really truly battling an injury he can't get over. But Anyway, back to Maurice Smith. Florida State's run game. This is what I got. This is right into my keys, and then I'll go into my picks to click. Run game. Florida State needs to get to $150. It's a pretty easy barometer to use, but right around there. But there's more importance to it. Third downs. Every game has moments where a third down play dictates not only who wins, but whether or not they can dominate even a small stretch of the game. If you're hitting third downs, you suck the life out of another team. And you, in this case, in Death Valley, Clemson can take the crowd out of the game. That's vital. Clemson has incredibly loud fans, and they're very loyal. They will come out today, and they will be cheering from start to finish. But if you can even mitigate that a little bit, it helps your players, it juices them up, etc. Look for the run game to do well and put them in more manageable situations than what Clemson is comfortable with. And I know they're going to run some exotics, and they're going to catch Florida State a couple times. I have no doubt. It's a good football team. It's just not what it normally is for Clemson because they are not dominant. They're just not. We can talk about it in a million ways, but this is not a dominant Clemson football team. There's no way you're going to convince me otherwise. That being stated, I'm going to go with 7 of 15 for my pick today on the number of third downs they hit. If they're over 40% on the road in a place like Death Valley, that's pretty good. And I think they'll do well on fourth and short when you've got an option kind of quarterback like old school. Jordan Travis would have been a great option quarterback. And now he can throw 2 RPOs. Wouldn't even be surprised. Here's a little hint. This is the kind of thing you could use it for. They didn't show a ton against BC. Fourth down and short yardage plays in general, a trick play or some kind of formation and or player, probably both, Florida State utilizes in short yardage. Maybe it's one of the tight ends in the backfield, like 2 fullbacks and 1 running back, play action, throw to the backside to Jaheim Bell, and he rumbles down the sideline. I don't know. There's a million different ways you can do it. That's why football is fun with schematics. But I think the 7 of 15 will be based off the run game and Maurice being in the middle. Once I found out about him starting, it changed my perception of third downs, and it increased my ability to say the following. And this, I've said it a couple times on podcasts this week on Locked On Seminoles. I'm going to say it again right now and a couple more times during the show. Number one thing here. Florida State will be able to run the ball, establish, and control it. And that leads to a 35-24 victory for the Noles. Having Maurice Smith back, I almost went to 38-24. It's debatable. It could come down to that. But anyway, real quick, anybody that's in there, if they want to throw out something, ask a question in the chat, feel free. I'm going to talk a little bit more about injuries, the bad news here in just a second. But I have one more thing I want to talk about with the offensive line right now. They're not going to be completely healthy all year. It's called football. Nobody's completely healthy. I think it's going to be Bless Harris. I'm not sure how they're going to organize it. It's going to get to start at left tackle. They'll be fine. He has a lot of experience. This is a good football player. Most teams in this same scenario would be in a lot of trouble, and it would change the point spread. It would change Florida State has the most experienced offensive line in modern college football history, if not ever. This single team. It's bizarre. But Phil Steele threw out this stat, and obviously if you follow college football, you probably know who he is, the prognosticator. He's incredible with all his statistics in his magazine. He said that, I believe it's 204 starts that the unit had collectively. All the players had started on the depth chart on the offensive line. That's insane. I'm not as concerned about it. The center of it is a little bigger deal, and that'll help more chemistry in the line calls like I talked about, but they'll be good there. Now, my concern on defense is Akeem Dent is not playing. There's no friendly there. There is none at all. That sucks. If I could pick a guy that I'd have back, that'd be one. I mean, he's a good football player, A, and then here's B. When somebody goes out, obviously there's a replacement. This is just the way it is. Pro Football Focus ranked his replacement, Noles, as a margin, just a middle of the road backup in how he performed against BC. He was around 60%. Against Clemson, that can get you beat. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. And Florida State knows that he obviously struggled last week. We don't get to see everything unless you're at the game in the back second. So I can't tell what's going on. So I'm not going to try to grade him individually or anything. But if he hadn't bust, that's one thing. He did have a missed tackle. They have to get him more help and or put him in less situations where he's going to be picked on. Very easy for me to say here on this live broadcast of Locked On Seminoles. But at the same time, that's a concern I have. If Clemson were to find a way to win today, there's a good chance they find him a couple of times and beat him. It's that simple. But again, if this point about if Antonio Williams is even banged up and plays a little, that's a problem for Clemson. If he doesn't play, this becomes less of an issue because you could roll coverage and do different things that you want and dictate to Clemson instead of the other way around. Not many teams can do that. Florida State's experience and my pick to click on defense, I got a couple, but watch out for Greedy today in the slot. Antonio is one of the guys that would play there, but Greedy's a very experienced guy that can play in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they moved corners around or did some different things just to keep Clemson off balance. Greedy's the kind of guy that'll come off his responsibility and jump a route next to him in zone or something like that, or if they're playing cover 4, which is basically soft man, and jumps around. Something like that, when Cade gets in trouble, he throws it up. It's fact. It's not debatable. That's what he does. I don't know if he'll continue that today, but the trend says yes. Let's see what we got here in the chat. Experience doesn't equal great talent. That is true, Rhinos. But at the same time, you need to have a little of both in games like this, and Florida State does. That's kind of the reason I went to at the Rhinos point. It's why I picked Florida State in the first place. The talent on the rosters isn't all that different. But at quarterback, it's the experience factor is humongous. And then the Noles have the better offensive line and the better experience there too. That's a problem. I mean, Will Shipley, I think if I can only take one running back for out of either school, I would take Will, but that's debatable. In running back, it's not the same kind of deal. You can have a freshman that can be a dominant player. How many freshmen are dominant quarterback? How many even sophomores? How many? Jordan Travis is a 6th-year senior. I've been saying 5th year recently. I looked it up, I'm like, oh yeah, he's a 6th-year senior. He's one of the most experienced players in all of college football. I want that guy behind Maurice today taking snaps. No offense to Cade, just being real. So I think that Florida State will ride this out. But here are a couple other things to discuss. Let's go back to the Noles situation. Will Florida State consistently come after Klubnik? Will they? Or will they rush 4, even if they're not getting home, if you will, sacking him, and wait for him to make errors? That's a question that I open-endedly have. Somebody wants to answer that in the chat, have an opinion about it, whatever, fire away. But I think it's a very unique question for the following reason. We don't have a ton of experience and knowledge based on how Cade's going to react to either one. And I'll add a sub-point to this. Inside the 25, and especially inside Florida State's 15, when Clemson gets into that area and it's a reduced space, this is when there's more pressure. This is when a DB can be more aggressive coming downhill because he doesn't have to protect against the deep ball. If there was ever a day to add to the Florida State-Clemson war on a special play, especially in the fourth quarter, you could see a pick 6 today. Doesn't have to be Greedy. It could be anybody. It could be Cypress. It could be whatever. It could be any of the DBs. Heck, it could be Noles. If you throw late with pressure in your face, one of these plays where Jared Verse or somebody else comes up and puts it on you, that's a problem. He's done that a few times this year. Florida State's experience, their talent combined, there's going to be at least one freebie today. It could be a pick 6. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I'm just saying that this is something that can happen. I also think that Klubnik won't have a great quote-unquote running day. I have bitched and I have moaned, rightfully so, that the one thing Florida State has struggled with defensively this year is consistently keeping the quarterback inside the, let's just say the tight end box, because sometimes they'll chip and do different things, especially on Jared Verse's side. Whatever. Jaden Daniels is a freak. He got outside some. Okay. Thomas Castellanos is another freak. 2 of the best athletes in all college football. You have the experience of saying you played them. Cade Klubnik's a pretty good athlete. He is not on that kind of physical level. Crafty, pretty fast, straight line, but he, like Thomas Castellanos, is built like an MMA fighter. Like he is yoked. You get your hands on him, it's iffy you're going to get him down. Jaden Daniels is just slippery. He's incredible in short space. Those two are on another level. When he gets into situations, talking about Klubnik, where he decides he's either A, going to go outside and still keep his eyes down the field, or B, the heck with it, I'm taking off. The defensive ends, Patrick Payton is my pick to click on defense today, by the way. That's when Florida State has to eat. You don't even have to touch it. But these are the things that I'm looking for. And these are pet peeves in football, not just a Florida State thing. I don't care if I'm watching a Pee Wee game, one of my buddy's kids. This drives me bananas. The quarterback who is in the most awkward position, he is straight up parallel to the line of scrimmage, running right towards the sideline. He looks at the guy like he's running right. He looks to his left, and the guy's getting ready to hit him, and he goes like this, and the guy jumps. He's not going to throw it. And if he does, it's probably going to get picked. Keep your feet on the ground. As soon as he does that, he slips around you, he gets 5 yards. They stay in a manageable situation, or they may even get a first down. Don't play stupid football. 2, the other opportunity, don't hit him late. Don't hit him late. I'm sure Pro Football Focus or somebody has a stat on this. The number of drives that end in touchdowns in college football that at some point were augmented by a completely stupid and a legitimate call by the refs based on a late hit or a hands to the face, something stupid along the sidelines when they chase the quarterback or the running back, whatever, is insane. I bet you it's 40% or more. Especially late in the game when the emotions are high. We got to get a stop. We got to get a stop. Sometimes less is more. Don't jump. Don't be an idiot and hit late or like hit the guy in the face. And obviously don't hit with your helmet. Those are the kinds of plays that kill every team. If you want to lose, especially in a big game, commit those kinds of penalties. You'll find a way to lose real quick. Now, here's the last thing I'm going to say on regards to Klubnik. He'll hit a few plays today. But again, if you're in the chat, John Fletcher brought this up. Allegedly, Antonio Williams is not going to play. I don't know. Until I see the game, I don't trust anything, as I've said many times on this podcast, as it relates to coaches being honest about injuries. They do 3 things when it comes to injuries in the media. They lie, and they lie. That's it. There is no other discussion. The number of times I've been told behind the scenes what's going on compared to what they say publicly is a gazillion. That's why I don't gamble. If you gamble on the NFL. Don't gamble on college. They lie. You will never bet on a line with an honest injury report. Ever. Don't do it. That being stated, I expect Florida State to tackle a little better. They're going to be a little more focused today. I'm stating the obvious. There's no reason, none, that Florida State should not have the opportunity to play with more emotion today. From the outset, I don't want to even have a thought come across my mind. Not one. That Florida State is down in a series mentally, especially like the defense, because you get to go after a guy that it's proven based on a little bit of freshman film and the Duke game in particular this year, that under heavy duress, he can have problems. In Florida State, if I remember, has only 8 sacks so far this year. That's okay. And teams are running quick game and they win against 2 really athletic guys. All of that, at some point, you just got to get home. It's a checkbox. Are you getting sacks? Minimum today is right here. 3. If you do not get 3 sacks today, it is on you. Klubnik is not the same athlete. And then the second point is kind of a sidebar to that. That should make it a little bit easier for the run defense. I mean, Clemson's got good running backs. Phil Maffa would start for most schools. Good football player. Big dude. You tackle him high, that's a mistake on you. That's a bad business decision. Obviously, Shipley's an NFL player. He'll make his money probably after this year. All of that being the case, Florida State still has a very balanced defense. I think they're going to do very well. And that leads me to my pick that I mentioned a moment ago, Patrick Payton. This is what I expect Clemson to do and how Florida State will counter. Just my opinion. No insider here, just based on football history, my knowledge of the sport. No team this year, Clemson included, is going to ignore Verse. His stats won't be near as good this year as they were last year. Not many people knew about him, and he really ate pretty good at the dinner table going one-on-one. His one-on-one days are over. Chip, double, both. Chip, double, both. He ain't going to get no one-on-ones today unless they are flat out running sprint to the other side of the field. He may not see one Maybe not one. And if they do, it's on them. But there's 2 defensive ends. If you double or chip one, it's kind of hard to do it to the other. Unless you're just going max protection, and then Clemson's in trouble. Their receivers just aren't good enough. They're not getting enough separation. Florida State should be able to get home in a variety of ways. Farmer, Fisk, etc. Love it. I expect them to push the pocket a little bit, do a little better today. But my guy is Patrick Payton today. Assuming he's healthy, and again, I don't pay any attention to any injury reports anymore unless it just comes out like a major report on a major network, live TV. I don't pay attention. I've been lied to too many times. Payton should be singled. He is a natural pass rusher. He is a natural knee bender. He is a natural flat-out athlete. 1.5 sacks is my pick today, and I also think he will have 2.5 tackles for loss. This is the guy that I think Florida State is going to hang their hat on today in one-on-ones. I'm not saying that Clemson has bad offensive linemen. I'm not saying they have bad tackles. I'm just saying Peyton's better. Sue me. And I also think one-on-one, it's going to be to his benefit. He might have better stats this year than he does next year because Versus is going to go to the NFL. He's going to be in the same situation that Versus is in now. There are other guys, but I think Peyton's going to be the dude for the Noles. A couple other things that I just touched on. You don't have to get sacks at defensive tackle to push the pocket to impact things. But what do quarterbacks usually do if Peyton, Verse, or anybody else, outside blitz, greedy blitzes off the edge on a corner blitz, whatever, they step up and they slide laterally, and they oftentimes go underneath the defensive end who's completely engaged, and they kick out, and then they've got a wide open view. It may be less the field, but it's an easier pass. If you get pushed in the middle against a young quarterback and the defensive end on either side is causing a ruckus, his feet will be moving and his eyes will be down. Passing play is pretty much over unless he completely gets outside the pocket against Florida State speed. That's hard. You're talking about then, that goes back to that pick 6 thing. These guys, I'm just naming some of them. One of them needs to have that play. I'm not talking about having an 8 tackle, 3 sack game. That play where it changes the outcome, it changes the scoreboard, even if they don't physically touch Jordan Travis. I'm talking about Fisk, Farmer, and Lovett. Those 3 are kind of my pick. There could be other guys because Florida State's so deep, but I'm going to start with them, and it's the defensive tackle rotation in general. One of them needs to have a whiff that the offensive lineman is accounted with. They come up the field, and it is timed up with a blitz or Lovett or somebody else. You know, they get in there, and all of a sudden one of the other Noles, they kind of corner him, and he throws it up. I mentioned a minute ago, for those of you who are already in the chat and whatnot, I think in the red zone, of course, the field is shortened, it's shrunk, it's easier to get picks. That could still happen at midfield or inside their own end too. Whatever the case, Florida State needs at least one freebie. It'd be hilarious if it was like backed up inside their own 12-yard line or something, but it could happen. If you want to take that crowd out of the game and you want to win it, that's the way to do it. Florida State also has a situation where their experience at linebacker should help them kind of get everything settled and put in proper perspective, even though there's a lot of crowd noise and all that. The communication for the defense will be pivotal. We've discussed ad nauseum this week that especially in the back end, there have been problems. I don't know what the heck they are, but you got guys getting flat out loose in the back end, and Dent's not playing. For those you missed, Akeem Dent is not, I repeat, he is not playing today. That is bad news for Florida State. There's no friendly there. There's no friendly at all. That is awful news. I don't know the extent of the injury. I don't know how long. Again, I never trust anything on injury reports. I just don't. I'm very hypocritical, but because I know I'm in media and I'm supposed to try to believe, but I don't. Bottom line is this. They can't allow poor communication today from anybody, from the D-line linebacker or secondary levels, to give up a touchdown, especially in the first half. Do not give them hope. At halftime, the Noles absolutely unequivocally need to be up. 2, they probably need to be up at the beginning of the second quarter, if not even by the 10-minute mark of the first quarter. They should be able to score with the first scripted drive. at minimum a field goal. And I think they should score a touchdown. Too much experience not to. Put it on them to come out and make it happen. And then the defense, knowing that if Clemson knows they have to score, like, hey, we just got smoked. Like if you win the toss and you get the ball and you go down and score, that's going to send a message to the OC for Clemson. Hey, this isn't a good sign. We're going to have to throw a little bit more. If you take Klubnik out of his normal game, a little bit of their game plan, even if it's 5-10%, that's 5 to 10% more likely that Florida State's going to have balls coming right here. Got to take advantage. That's my other pet peeve that I talked about a minute ago. For those of you who don't know, don't go for the head fake and then the quarterback runs around you, and don't hit guys late, like going out of bounds or running back, a receiver, and especially a quarterback. They'll always throw it on the quarterback. Let it go. Do not give them 15 yards. Hate that. Drives me nuts. The other thing, when a ball comes to you and it's just a pathetic pass, pick it off. Don't drop the frickin' ball. You're a Division I athlete. That's across college football. I hate that. Final piece here that I'm going to talk about. Special teams. Today's weather is supposed to be beautiful. I got 80 to 85, mostly sunny. You really can't bitch, right? That's what college football should be about. Great day to watch football in Clemson, South Carolina. TV will look great. In person, it'll look great. There's no excuse for a drop punt, and then you pick it up and get hammered. There's no excuse for dropping a punt that you catch. So the punter or the return guy, nothing like that. There's no excuse when you're the kickoff guy to hit one off the side of your foot to give them a penalty, get the ball like the 40 or whatever it is. No easy fields. If Cade Klubnik has to go from his 25 or in over half the drives today, I guarantee you that Florida State's going to win. He's not good enough yet. He might be at some point, but he ain't anywhere near it yet. He has disappointed me because I had him pretty high. Coming out of high school, I'd seen him play live, etc. He's good, but he has too many erratic moments. The more you make him go the length of the field, the more likely not only his teammates can screw up with a penalty or something else or drop pass, but that stuff will get in his head. He's 19 years old. Make him go the distance. One of the best ways to do that is special teams. Punting game and the kicking game are pivotal. Obviously, you want to hit your field goals and your extra points. That's self-explanatory. But if they do that, they make Cade Klubnik go 75, 85 yards, that kind of range. Florida State will win by double digits, and they could win by 20. Because at the end of the game, again, I'm going by what, for those of you who haven't paid attention, John Fletcher said in the chat, I'd heard about this possibly. I don't know, and I won't believe it until I see it for sure. Allegedly, Antonio Williams is not going to play. He is a sophomore receiver for the Clemson Tigers. Good football player. He is a lot of their short game. He is a very much a safety valve for Cade Klubnik. Their offensive line is not good enough to pony up and run for 250 today. They're not that kind of line. Even with their two running backs, they got two really good ones. They're not. They're good, but against this front, if they got to 140, I think I'd be pretty happy if I was Dabo. I'm going to guess they're going to get 120 to 125, and that's with a couple of scrambles from Klubnik. He'll get a couple because he's a good athlete, and he'll get about 25 yards in those. I think the running backs for Clemson go for about 100, 105 yards, and I'll take that because I think Florida State's going to be motivated to force Klubnik. This is exactly what I would do. Force Klubnik to beat us. If you beat us today, Cade's got to throw for 300, and he's got to complete 66%, basically 2 out of 3 passes. And again, I'm going by what's being said in the chat. Without Antonio, they're not going to be able to do it. If Florida State plays run gap defense, they punt the ball right, they kick off right, they don't have any dumb errors on the penalties and stuff, and they make Klubnik just inch his way down the field with an okay running game, even though they got, again, 2 really good running backs, they're not going to beat Florida State. They're just not. A few of my friends had, I think the line's about 3 points everywhere. And again, I don't gamble, but I thought that line was really low. I'm guessing it's just there's a lot of action on Clemson because they're playing at home. That's a tough place to play, and historically, teams don't do well there. Anybody, not Florida State, anybody. But that line is very low to me. Sophomore quarterback against a 6th-year senior. Florida State has arguably the most experienced team in college football out of guys that actually play, not just the roster. And then they have playmakers. I didn't even talk about the final little piece here. I should have mentioned it. At some point today, at least one of, and I predict both Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson will dunk on somebody with a big play, whether it's a catch, making somebody miss, taking it off somebody's head, or both. That's kind of the final piece. They don't have guys like that right now at Clemson that have proven it. Not saying they don't have it athletically, but they don't have that. They don't have a 6'7", 235-pound guy for one. They don't. Jaheim Bell will have some key plays too. In the short to intermediate game, he'll be big today. I think he's going to have 5 catches. Some of them might be short. He might even get a reverse. He's already done it. The guy is a very special tight end. I'm real glad to see him get a chance to showcase his skills on a bigger stage. Nothing against South Carolina. Florida State's a whole nother level. Man, probably too. But they've taken his opportunity to not only be a blocker, it made it better, but he's getting the ball in the flat. He's getting the ball in the middle of the field. They're using him in a variety of ways on pass routes. It's going to help him come NFL draft time. So my final pick, once again, for those of you who didn't hear at the beginning of the show, 35-24 Noles. It wouldn't shock me if it's more. If they keep Klubnik in the pocket for the majority of the game and they don't allow him short fields, obviously you can't turn. I'm not even going to talk about turnovers. If you're on this show and you don't know that turnovers are a problem, let's not get too crazy. But the obvious here is this. Florida State could even be -1, in my opinion, and win this game. That's how much I respect Jordan Travis and the offense being clutch. If they're even or plus, and if you keep him in the pocket, again, contain, resist the urge just to run by the guy because he'll just escape out underneath you. He's going to throw a dumb pass at some point. It's going to either be a pick six or give the offense a short field. It's going to happen. He's done it already. Ask Duke. There'll be something like they couldn't even hand off right inside the 10. He's got butterfingers right now. Until otherwise proven, you have to treat him that way. Force him to go inch by inch down the field. No mental errors down there in the secondary. Noles has to be on point today. They got to figure that out. That's a problem. And then finally, special teams. Make him go the distance of the field. No shank punts, no block punts. Don't drop it and then get tackled. Nothing goofy like that. Florida State will win 35-24 today. Just for fun, a couple other picks. Obviously, it's a big weekend of college football. I think the most entertaining game, while it could be the Ohio State-Notre Dame game, my pick for that is actually Oregon State at Washington State. I think that game is tremendous. Oregon State's head coach is fantastic, Johnson Smith. I don't even know the Washington State head coach. I should, but their quarterback, the transfer from Incarnate Word, that guy's a dude. I don't think he's thrown a pick yet this year. Watch that game later tonight if you get a chance. That's going to be one heck of a football game. I also think Ole Miss is going to win in Bryant-Denny Stadium today. Just my pick. I got them 31-20. The Ohio State game, I've got Ohio State 35-31 over Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a very close game. It could go one way or the other. Some of my friends are picking Notre Dame. Some are picking Ohio State. It's one way or the other. I wouldn't want to put money on that game. I know that. I don't gamble anyway, but that one I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. And then finally, out of all the picks, something to watch today. Just when you're going through, flipping the channels, like after the Florida State game's over, whatever game you turn it on. This is something I've talked about on the show, and it's not a Florida State thing. There are 133 teams in the FBS now. Note when you watch a game, how many times the quarterback on the field, when they say starting quarterback for so-and-so, are they at least 3 years removed from high school? So redshirt sophomore counts. Or if it's a kid that went to a prep school that ends up starting and he's only a sophomore, he's technically 3 years removed. The difference between 2 and 3 years, it's like this, a light that goes on. There are 1 or 2 kids every year that are freshmen and sophomores that are dudes. Last year, Caleb Williams and Drake May. Okay. The kid at Memphis, Hennigan or something, I forget his name. A couple years ago, he was pretty good. He's a junior now. Okay. But by and large, they aren't very good. The only guy I trust that's under a junior right now is Dante Moore at UCLA. I thought he was the best high school player of the country last year. They play a tough game today at Utah. I give them more than a puncher's chance to win at Utah. That's just a tough place. And I don't know if I trust UCLA's defense. But Dante Moore is a top 5 pick in the draft when he comes out kind of guy. So they got a chance. He's a true freshman, very, very special player. If you get a chance, check out a little of the UCLA game. That'll be good. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you very much. I'm going to do some discussion about this game tomorrow. on Locked On Seminoles. Give me a chance to digest it, kind of go back and look at it. I'm not going to do a live show after the game. I'm going to compare Florida State to some of the other teams I've seen, the Ohio State game. I'm definitely going to compare it to like the quarterbacks in the Oregon State, Washington State game. They intrigue me. Talk about some of the different things that the guy at Washington State reminds me of Travis a lot, to be honest. I'm very interested in that game and just kind of compare where's Florida State at against everybody, no matter what happens in the game between Clemson and the Noles today. That's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow on Locked On Seminoles. And then we'll go into the next week talking about the next opponent, etc., starting on Monday. But anyway, thank you very much for everybody that stopped in today. Had fun. I expect a great game. Everybody enjoy it. Again, my pick, 35-24 Florida State. Everybody be safe.